Hey everyone, my name is Vance, and today I'm going to be showing you the easy way to install Windows 10 using an ISO file. First, I will tell you that you will need an 8 gigabit flash drive that is either empty or fully backed up, and which can be wiped. You will also need an operating system to download and copy the files to the drive, and that operating system needs admin privileges, by the way. You also need 6 gigabytes of free storage space. That's not for the installation itself. For further guidance, you might want to check out the link in the description to check the requirements you need to install Windows 10. Future editor me here, I also want to just let you guys know that you want to make sure that the computer you intend to install Windows on is fully backed up, because this is a clean install and everything on your drive will be wiped, so you want to make sure all of your files are backed up before we continue with this installation. First, we want to check the Windows version that we're currently on for activation purposes later in the video. To do this, we will right-click on the Start button and click Run. We will then type in winver, winver stands for Windows version, and we will click OK. Then we will see the Windows version that we are currently using pop up. Mine is Windows 10 Pro. Yours will also be listed here. You will want to keep a note of that, as it will help for activation purposes later in the video. Then, once you noted that down, we can go ahead and click OK to close out of this window. And then go to our browser to begin downloading what we need to download. We will go to Edge, and we are going to type in the search bar, Windows 10 ISO download. We will then search this up, and we will click the link that is by Microsoft.com, the real website, and we will scroll down a little bit, and click Download Now on the Windows 10 installation media. It will then begin downloading, and it is very quick to download. And we will then click Open File. We will then click Yes. This is where you need admin privileges. And the Windows 10 ISO downloader will start preparing and getting ready. Then, we will accept the license terms, assuming that you've read and agreed to all of these license terms. As I have, I'm going to press Accept. And the installation process will continue preparing. And we will use the recommended options for this PC, assuming everything looks right to you. Then we will click Next. Here we can directly prep the USB flash drive or use an ISO file. In this tutorial, we are going to use the ISO file and use a custom flash drive burner. Therefore, we will click ISO file and click Next. Then, Windows is going to ask us where we would like to save this ISO file that it prepares for us. Simply click Downloads and click Save. The Windows 10 installation media will begin preparing our ISO and downloading it to our computer. This might take a little bit of time. I will skip to when this downloader completes. It is also something to note that Windows will go through a verification process for this file, so it may look like it's restarting, but it's really not. This process should go a bit quicker than what it was doing before. It's just verifying the file to make sure it downloaded correctly. I will skip to when it's done. So, as we can see here, the setup has finished downloading the ISO file, as it is suggesting we should burn the ISO to a DVD. We are not going to do that, and we are just going to click Finish. Now that we have the ISO downloaded, we can also go here and just type in Rufus to do a search for Rufus, which is a flash drive burning software. There are a lot of different flash drive burning softwares, but in this video we will use Rufus. So we will go into the Rufus website. We will scroll down a little bit, and we will click the Rufus 3.18 download. We will click the X on this ad, and Rufus will download. And it downloads pretty quickly. It is important to note not to click on any of these other download buttons right here, because those are just ads and they lead to something entirely different. The only thing you should be clicking download on is the Rufus 3.18 and the X on the ad that pops up. Then Rufus will download, and that's all we will do on this site. We can then close out of Edge, or whatever browser you're using, and we can click to open File Explorer, open Downloads. we can see the file we downloaded from Microsoft.com, which we don't need anymore. We have our ISO file, and we have our Rufus file. I'm going to double click on Rufus flash drive burner to open it, and this is also where we need admin privileges. I will click no for checking updates online, just to make it a little bit faster, and this may look a little bit overwhelming, but trust me, it is not. So we can close out of File Explorer. First, what we want to do is make sure we have a flash drive plugged in. This is also a note that if you have multiple flash drives plugged into your computer or any, go ahead and unplug them because we don't accidentally want to wipe the wrong flash drive. Now you can plug in your dedicated flash drive that you want to use for the installation. Just make sure it has been either backed up or is empty, and we can go ahead and plug in this flash drive. So we are going to plug in the flash drive, and as we can see here, Windows has caught on to the fact that we plugged in the flash drive. Now we're going to click on this drop down, make sure that's the only one, and make sure everything looks right. Now your name of your flash drive could be different. I used mine previously as an installation drive, so therefore my name looks like this. Then you want to make sure the size is correct and whatnot. This is how you also can tell if you're using the right flash drive, and just make sure that's in. Then for the boot selection, we are going to select the ISO, which is the only one in our downloads folder, the Windows ISO that Windows 10 setup downloaded. We are just going to click here, and we are going to click open. Then you'll see this image option right here. You don't touch it, just leave it default. For our partition scheme, there is a few things we can check. There's going to be two options. There's going to be an MBR option and a GPT option. This may sound confusing. First, we can check what our current system is on. This is on the intended computer you intend to install Windows on. What version is already running on here, either GPT or MBR. To do this, on the computer we intend to install Windows on, you want to right-click on the Start button, and then click Disk Management. From there, basically everything about the hard drives plugged into this computer, including the hard drive, will show up. We want to pick the hard drive of our computer, not the flash drive, and usually you can tell it has the C drive right here, and that's how we know this is our hard drive. And we are going to right-click on this space right here. We're going to click Properties, and then we are going to click Volumes. Here, next to Partition Style, it will show us what partition scheme we already have on our drive, which may help us with further guidance on which one to pick there. Generally speaking though, I recommend just picking GPT because GPT is the newer and more modern option. Just keep in mind that if yours is on MBR, your computer may not be able to run GPT, but very rarely is that the case, and vice versa sometimes, but that is also very rare. So, you can go ahead and pick the version here. I recommend doing GPT highly. So mine is GPT, so I'm going to click OK and close this, and just make sure I have GPT selected. This stays the same, we don't touch this, it's automatically set by what partition scheme we set. Then this will all stay default as well, we will all leave that there, and then we will click Start. It will quickly warn us once again that everything on this flash drive is going to be wiped. You just want to make sure the flash drive is backed up before Rufus wipes it and puts the installation files on there. To proceed with this, we will then click OK. And you will start to see Rufus delete and wipe the drive and start copying over the installation files. This will take a little bit of time, so I will skip to the part when it's done. Okay, so as we can see, Rufus has finished copying the installation files over to our flash drive. For some of you, you might get a pop-up message that just says you made a GPT drive if you picked GPT. Sometimes a message comes up. For the people who picked MBR, it shouldn't pop up, but some of you may have gotten this message. For me, I picked GPT and I didn't get this message, but just in case it pops up. So you would just close that message, and then for the rest of us, we would all just click Close. And then I will go to my browser one more time so we can figure out the boot menu key we will need to boot off of our flash drive. First of all, let me just explain that usually your computer automatically boots into your operating system. However, here we need to tell our computer to boot into our flash drive that contains the installation files. so we can do a clean install of Windows. In order to do this, we will need to find out our boot key. And our boot key will be the key that once our computer restarts into a black screen, we will start spamming that key, and maybe you'll hear a beep, maybe you'll hear some type of noise, but your computer will start loading into what's called a boot menu. From there, you will see a bunch of options, and you will just select your flash drive from the menu to boot from it. Here, though, usually we will just go to our browser, and from here, we will search up our boot menu key by our computer manufacturer or computer model. For me, my computer's an HP, so I will just type in HP boot menu key. I will hit enter, and I already know that my boot menu key is going to be F9. However, I will show you guys very quickly where you can usually find these. Just like on one of these first sites right here, where it says enter the boot menu, press escape or F9 immediately to enter the boot menu. So for most HPs, it can be escape or F9. For mine specifically, it's F9. So now I know what my boot menu key is. Another key that I've learned from previous installation that you may want to find is your BIOS key. And I'll type for HP since mine is for HP. The BIOS is a screen you've probably never seen before. It's basically a screen that has nothing to do with Windows. It's just part of your computer, and it's your system configuration settings. Most people didn't even know this existed, but we may have to switch a setting in there. In the case that you do, it's a good idea to note this down as well now. But for most people, you may not need this. For mine, I already know my BIOS key is F10, and as we can see here, the universal HP BIOS keys are escape, F10, and F1. In this case, just like the boot menu key, you would just try these until you find which one boots into the BIOS, which may take a few times to restart. I know mine is F10 though, so I'm already prepared, and I'm going to close my browser. Then from here, I still have my flash drive plugged in, and I will go ahead and restart my system. From here, you will see Windows Restart, and from here you want to hit your boot menu key, so for me, that is F9. And from here, you should see your flash drive on the list. In the case that you don't see your flash drive on this list, this is where the idea of the BIOS key I told you about comes into play. So for some of you, if this doesn't come up, it probably means that the mode, either GPT or MBR that we set on our flash drive, is not the same mode that our computer is currently set on. Even though we checked it, sometimes things can get mixed up anyways. So therefore, we will restart our computer, and you can do this by holding down Control-Alt-Delete for most computers, or you can just hold down the power button and turn it back on. So I will do that. And then you will start spamming your BIOS key, just like you would in the boot menu, to boot into your BIOS. From here, you will be in your BIOS, and there are a lot of configuration settings. I will show some examples on the screen where you need to go to, but usually it will be under a boot tab or advanced settings and maybe boot area, where you will be finding these options that we need to change in order for it to read your flash drive. For me, it's system configuration and boot options. Then you will find an area somewhere on your BIOS menu. Unfortunately, it's not the same for everyone, and I cannot do anything about that because there are thousands of computer models around the world, and each one has a different BIOS. So, generally speaking though, I'm going to list the general things you need to know. Usually, if you've picked MBR on your drive, then you're going to pick Legacy. If you've picked GPT, you're going to pick UEFI Native. Then, once you select those, you would just hit Exit, and because I am not changing anything, I'm going to click No, but you would click Yes. Then we would boot back into our boot menu, and you should see the flash drive appear. I am now going to boot into my flash drive. And you will see the flash drive start to load the installation files. This may take a little bit of time, so I will skip to the part when it is finished loading and is in the installation page. Now, as we can see, the Windows 10 installation window has loaded. First, we are going to pick our language and region settings, and once you verify everything looks correct, click Next. We will then click Install Now. You will then arrive to a page like this. This is the Windows activation screen, and for some of you, you may know that your current Windows version isn't activated, so you may need to put in a key here to activate Windows. There's another portion of you who may have a Windows key in your BIOS somewhere, and you might not even see this screen. You might be on the direct screen that is to accept the license terms. If you are on that screen, just wait there while I help the other people who are not on that screen. Then there is, for what most people will probably need to do, to keep their activation, just click I don't have a product key. In this case, I am also going to click I don't have a product key because my version of Windows was activated before, and this will assure that that license stays. I will then click I don't have a product key. Here, it is going to make us pick the version that we had before. And for this, I've had Windows 10 Pro before. That is the reason I had you note the version down, because we are going to pick that version here. As far as activations, if you're using Windows 8 or Windows 7 before, I'm not entirely sure what the process is like, but as far as Windows 10, the license should transfer over. And if after you still don't have a license, you may need to buy one from Microsoft. Anyways though, here, if you've had a home version before, you're going to pick Windows 10 Home. If you had a Pro version before, you're going to hit Windows 10 Pro and so on. I had Windows 10 Pro before. I'm just going to click Windows 10 Pro again and click Next. Here is the license terms agreement by Microsoft. You will accept assuming that you've read all of these terms and agreed to them. I have read these terms and I agree to them, so I will click Accept. Then I will click Next. I will then, from here, click on Custom, and from here, I just need to make you aware of something. So first of all, maybe your computer has multiple drives. In some cases, maybe you didn't even realize you had multiple drives, but it is possible to have multiple drives in a computer. The way that you can see this is, on my computer, I have one drive. This is all drive 0. That means it's the same drive. You can have partitions in one drive, which is essentially like folders in one drive. So here, I have one drive. Now, if you have another drive that says drive 1, that's a different drive number, and therefore, that is an entirely separate drive. If you do have multiple drives, this is just to let you know that you want to make sure you are picking the right drive to wipe. And usually you can see the full capacity of that drive just to double check by adding all the partition numbers on that drive up and checking if the space on that drive looks familiar to the space you had before. But furthermore, on the drive that you are using, you're just going to delete all the partitions on it. So I'm going to click OK and delete this one. Going to click OK and delete this one. And you will notice the drive will start to get smaller. Now, if you have an entirely different drive, it will not let you combine those two because they are two different drives. Mine is one drive, and it combined all into one once I deleted the partitions. You also want to make sure this says unallocated space. So I have my drive 0, my one drive, unallocated space, and I am good to go. Just make sure the correct drive is selected if you have multiple drives, and then I will click Next. The Windows setup will start copying the files and installing Windows to your computer. This process may take a while and you will see some restarts, so please just wait here until it is finished. So I will cut to the part when the Windows installation finishes. And as you can see, the Windows installation is finished and the setup for Windows 10 is now loading to set all of your preferences and different things like that. And as we can see here, the installation has finished, and now we are going to set some preferences for Windows 10. First, it's going to ask us about the region that we're in and our keyboard layout. I'm going to click Yes on this region, and then it is going to ask us our keyboard layout. I'm going to click Yes. You can add a second one if you want, but for default, I'm going to click Skip. And then Windows is going to ask us to connect to a network. I'm going to connect to my Wi-Fi, so I will click Connect and input a password. Then I will click Next. And once Windows has connected to your Wi-Fi network, or if you've plugged in an Ethernet cord, which it will show up here connected, it will then give you the next option, and you will click Next. There's also a different option before that said, I don't have internet. As you can see right here in the bottom left, that showed before, and if you don't have internet at the time, you can click I don't have internet. But for updates, we're going to connect to internet, so I'm going to connect to my Wi-Fi network, and then click Next. Windows is then going to install some new Windows updates and drivers for your computer, and it will inform you it probably needs to restart. In this case, Windows should restart once, and it may take a little bit of time, so I will cut to when it is done. And for some of you, Windows actually won't restart, but for me it did. Anyways though, after this restart, we're going to set up for personal use and click Next. Then it's going to ask us for an account. This is the current difference a little bit between Windows 11 and Windows 10. In Windows 10, you can still choose to do a local account, while Windows 11 mostly forces people to make a Microsoft account. Here, it will give you the option to either add a Microsoft account, or you can choose to use a local account. So I will choose to use a local account. I'll click Offline Account. Then I will click Limited Experience when it pops up. And it's going to ask who's going to use this PC, and I will type in user. I will type in a password. I will confirm my password. It's going to ask me 3 security questions. I'm just going to name these all happy. Name happy. And click enter. And it will go to the next part. For those of you who are using a Microsoft account, just continue with that process as well, and then it should take you past here into the privacy settings for your device. Then from here, I usually just accept them as default, but you can customize them to whatever you'd like. I'm going to click accept. Then Microsoft will ask us about some personal things we can design Windows for. I'm just going to click skip by default. And then it's going to ask us about, I think, enabling Cortana. Oh, my computer just caught onto the graphics driver there. It's going to ask us about enabling Cortana. So I'm just going to hit accept by default. And then Windows will start loading into the actual operating system now. So this may take a second as well. So I will cut to when it's done. And as we can see here, Windows is finally loading into the operating system. So now that we have the operating system, you may want to restart once. In this case though, I am not going to restart. Now I will show all the users how to get their flash drive back from using it as an installation drive. First, your flash drive should already be plugged in, but at a certain point you could actually take out your flash drive. So if you did take out your flash drive, just put it back in right now and make sure Windows recognizes it. And once Windows sees it, we're going to right click on Start and click Disk Management. For all users here, there's just one simple file we have to delete and then format our drive. So we are going to right click on our removable disk on this partition right here and delete volume. You know this is the right drive because it says removable. We're going to delete volume and then click yes. Then from here, we're going to right click on this unallocated space, sort of like before, and we are going to click New Simple Volume. Then we will click Next, Next, leave some of these default, Next. Here's the only thing we will change. Usually I change mine from FAT30 to the NTFS. If you need more information about it, you can look up what the difference between these file systems are, but usually for default I just click NTFS. And mine is a Lexar drive, so I will name it Lexar. And I will click Next. Then I will click Finish. And in a few seconds, my flash drive should be fully flashed back to a normal flash drive. And as we can see right here, it has done that. Sometimes though, however, Windows still incorrectly formats the flash drive, so sometimes you will need to do it again. In this tutorial, it didn't do that for me, and it works perfectly fine. But in my other Windows 11 tutorial, it did this, so I might as well show the users what happens. Sometimes you will click on here and it will say Format Again, and you will just click Format Drive there, and then here, I'll click from here, and then this will pop up. And then from here, you can just select the options again, NTFS, and name your drive. Then you would just click Start, OK, and then it would do it. But for some people, I know that is going to happen, so I am listing it in this video here. It will only take a few seconds, and once the format is complete, we will click OK, and we will click Close here. Then we can quickly check in File Explorer, and your drive should be normal. It should say this folder is empty, just like a brand new clean drive. So, as we can see, this is my flash drive right here, and there we go. We can just go ahead and eject. For some reason, my Windows notifications are still off, but usually it would say safe to remove hardware, and you can always double check that here. This PC, it's gone. So I will pull my flash drive out. For some other users as well, this is an important thing to check. I didn't do this in my last video, but figured I should show you guys something. If you want to check that your Windows operating system actually got activated. To make sure that Windows is reading this properly, you want to make sure you're connected to the internet because it's the only way it can communicate with the activation servers to see if your Windows license is active. Then once we connect to the internet and make sure we're connected, we click in the search bar and simply type activation. In activation settings, which we can click on, we will open this in a new window, and as I can see on my screen, the version and that Windows is activated. Mine says with the digital license, yours might not say that, but for the most part, it should just say that Windows is activated. If Windows is not activated, you may need to buy a license from Microsoft. It's actually helpful to know that you do not have to activate Windows in order to use the operating system, as most features will work. The only features you would be missing out on are some personalization features and maybe security updates or a few other features, but generally speaking, the operating system works normally, as it would if it was activated. So the choice to activate Windows really depends on if you see yourself ever using these options. For more information, I will directly link in the description what you need to know about the extra features you will get by activating Windows. And then from here, we will just simply close settings. And that is basically it. You can restart your computer once if you want, like I said earlier. Just makes things fresh if you restart one more time from the installation, because your computer hasn't restarted probably once after. And thank you guys for watching this video. I hoped it helped you in this installation process, maybe educated you on something, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.